Howard, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mark.
This is going to be a little dialogue today between the two of us. We'll talk a little COVID, and we'll talk also about how ADDF is doing, and then also there's some exciting science that's starting to break through. We had a lot of momentum going into this time, and it's great to see some of that momentum's continuing. You know, Howard, you and I have talked many a morning, both professionally and personally, quite frankly, about how the COVID epidemic has particularly affected those with dementia and Alzheimer's, and has particularly affected those who care for people with dementia and Alzheimer's. And there was a wonderful letter to the editor that was in the New York Times that was penned by you talking about our community, people with dementia and Alzheimer's and their caregivers. And wonder if you would just like to share some of your thoughts on that. It'd be a good way to start today.
So this is the letter I wrote to the editor of the New York Times. Statistics about COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes are sobering, but they don't tell the whole story. A large proportion, up to 80% of nursing home residents have Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer patients, especially those with advanced dementia, require intimate, hands-on care. Staff must feed, dress, bathe, and toilet these patients. Even with proper personal protective equipment, this close contact increases the risk of viral transmission. Frail elderly nursing home patients with Alzheimer's disease who contract respiratory infections face a grim reality. They have weaker immune systems, increasing the risk of infection and even death. Nursing homes generally don't have the capacity or the mission to offer ventilators and other forms of intensive care. Many long-term care patients specify in their advance directives that they do not want aggressive care, but prefer palliative care. There is no doubt that long-term care facilities face challenges in preventing COVID-19 from entering and spreading in their buildings. However, let's not lose sight in the statistics of apparent excess nursing home deaths of the above realities. Working within these challenges and constraints, the healthcare workers providing nursing home care during the COVID-19 pandemic are just as much heroes as the first responders.
Yeah, terrific. I will say, and I'll kind of pivot this now just to ADDF, and just with the last, hours, 2-3 months that we've all been working from home. And I have to say to everybody who's watching this, we're doing well. First of all, let me start with, in the office, Howard and I are always a little bit different. Howard as a person was, we need to be in the office 9 to 5 every day, and was more of the person, people can work from home from time to time. And I think it's great because about, Howard, 2-3 weeks into this, what did you say to me about yourself? Because I never thought I'd live to see the day.
Well, one thing I said was I was saving a lot of money on dry cleaning because I don't have to wear a suit every day.
I will comment that ADDF is not affected like this the way other nonprofits or charitable health organizations might be. There's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, there's a trust from the Lauder family that covers all of the operating expenses, so Howard can always say 100% of your donation goes directly to the science that we'll talk about today. And then there's a particular arm that any science grants we give out are actually not grants, but they're investments, and we have contracts, whether it's academic or it's biotech. And what's been amazing, Howard, in this period of time of COVID, we've seen one deal come to fruition, another about to come to fruition. So would you talk about, the returns on investment we're seeing on our science right now?
One thing I've been impressed with is the time it takes from the initial funding to when these things really become licenses or, get funded in Series A and things like that. So a lot of our programs that we're still getting returns on, we funded as early as 2002. Another company that recently turned out to be a success, which we took a lot of risk on, is a company called Tetra. And Tetra has what's called a phosphodiesterase 4 inhibitor. I know that's a big word, but basically this is a memory-enhancing drug that's also neuroprotective, really risky kind of project. And in the last month or so, last 2 months, Tetra has been able to do a licensing deal with a large Japanese pharmaceutical company called Shionogi. The other thing that has happened recently is that we've been funding in an academic setting. As you mentioned, Mark, all of our academic programs are also investments where we write contracts that share returns with the university. And we funded Dr. Jerry Rook and Dr. Paul Newhouse at Vanderbilt University to develop molecules that are cognitive enhancers called M1 positive allosteric modulators. These are drugs that also hit the hippocampus where Alzheimer's disease starts and enhance cognition. And Vanderbilt recently announced a $515 million license on the program with a major pharmaceutical company. And so we're very excited about that.
There's been some real interesting trade press that has started that's around Alzheimer's science, and actually science we've been investing in, that's progressing and showing promise.
Yeah, well, one of the unique things I think that the foundation does is we have this large repurposing program. So we're taking drugs that are approved for other indications like Parkinson's disease and cancer and heart disease and diabetes. And we're, for good reason, where there's actual preclinical data and clinical data, for good reason, we'll support the repurposing of these drugs, like liraglutide, which is one of the leading drugs for diabetes, or candesartan, which is one of the leading drugs for hypertension, or nilotinib, which is a leading drug for certain kinds of cancer, or rotigotine, which is a drug being used for Parkinson's disease.
Similarly, Howard, do you want to let folks know we had a wonderful drug discovery conference that's usually done physically on site. Instead, we did it virtually, and the numbers were great.
Yeah, sure. So for about 15 years now, we've had a sort of a seminar-type series conference, which has been supported by the National Institute on Aging over the years and some other pharmaceutical grants, to teach people how to do drug discovery and drug development. And generally, we have about 150 early stage investigators, people that are in academia, or even people in biotech companies that are new to the biotech world, and sometimes even mid-career and late-career scientists who want to just catch up, because it's a really good conference. And as Mark mentioned, it worked out really well. We had over 600 people. We've never had that many people have access to the conference. So that was a really big upside to this year's conference. We just had terrific attendance.
We've repivoted our special events to be virtual events, and they're bringing in money. Just as kind of a proof of concept of how well we're working, those of you that tuned into the repurposing of our Great Ladies Luncheon, which was a virtual Zoom that we did, that was wonderful. It featured Andrea Mitchell from NBC, and it featured Howard and Dr. Robbie Brinton talking about the most latest and exciting research, and then there was some nice emotional pieces of it. TJ Oshie, the hockey star, talking about his father with early onset. And we ended up raising over $450,000, and we didn't have to feed anybody in a ballroom. So thank you to everybody who's watching this video who continues to support such needed research. And then on a mission front, just to underscore two things. One, if there's a loved one in your family that you think you could use some advice from Dr. Fillit, please reach out to us. We're here to help, and nobody's better at that than Howard. And Howard, let me just personally thank you, because everything that you're talking about, you have guided me through with my own family. My mother-in-law, who's 92, moderate dementia right before everything started, fell and broke her hip and went from hospital to recovery, and then ultimately to skilled nursing. She was in 3 different institutions over a 12-week period, but she got the best of care because we understood this better. And Howard, you were a big help to that, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And I guess last, Howard, on behalf of both of us, to all of our ADDF family members watching this, we want you to be safe and to be well, and we will continue to be in touch. So, Howard, thank you for everything today.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody.